Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of three Psalms: Psalm 23, Psalm 90, and Psalm 103. And this conversation between David and Moses, and between David and us, in which David and Moses both look at our individual relationship with God and then our corporate relationship with God, we as individuals, as people of God, and then God's people together, and the way God sees us as flawed human beings and the relationship with Him that we have. And we finished with the text of Psalm 23 yesterday, and I want to go ahead and read Psalm 23 today, and then read just a little ways into Psalm 90. We'll introduce Psalm 90 more formally tomorrow, but I want to look at some real connection and comparing and contrasting between Psalm 23 and Psalm 90. So let's just remind ourselves of Psalm 23 and some of the themes that we've talked about already. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We talked about how um, pastoral it is, that God cares for us, that God is the one taking care of us. David sees his relationship with God that way. We talked about the calmness of it. We talked about the provision, the overflowing provision of it. We talked about the fact that we're not going to be afraid when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death because God is with us, taking care of us. We are wholly and utterly dependent upon God, not sufficient of ourselves, but that's okay because God loves us and takes care of us. There is a looking forward. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. He looks forward to walking through the valley of the shadow of death. That's where I'm headed. But that's okay. You're going to be with me. And beyond that, I'm going to have goodness. Have mercy, and I will live in eternity in God's house as a member of God's household. And that's what's going on in Psalm 23. When we look at Psalm 90, and I want to just read the first 4 verses. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, wherever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, Return, O children of man, for 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. Let's go ahead and read verses 5 and 6. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. We're going to stop there. We said that the opening line of Psalm 23 is a statement of David's faith that explains him more than anything else. The Lord is my shepherd. I will not want. I have no need. And how, as that it explains everything we need to know about how the way David felt about himself before God. God is the one. I have to take care of others, but God's the one taking care of me. He's my shepherd. And then he just expands upon that in the rest of the psalm. Psalm 90, that opening line is no less a statement of faith by Moses. Moses, who was born in slavery, Moses, who was raised in the halls of Egypt, in the palaces of Egypt, Moses, who had to flee Egypt and wander the wilderness himself for 40 years, tending his father-in-law's sheep before he led the children of Israel through the wilderness, never having stepped foot in the promised land before he died, although he had the chance to see it. And instead of a young man who asks himself, "Who cares for me?" He's a man who asks himself, "Where do I belong? Where is home even located?" And he answers that question, this ultimate question for himself on that line. Lord, Yahweh, you. are our dwelling place in all generations. It's such a beautiful thought and explains so much. In all those years he was wandering in the wilderness with the children of Israel, he was already home because God is the dwelling place. The promised land is with them wherever they are, so long as they have God and are right before God. They have home because God is home. And this parcel of land that he promised us, we're going after it because it's ours. He gave it to us. But honestly, home is wherever Yahweh is because Yahweh is home. But we already see a completely different view of humanity's place in relationship with God. Instead of looking forward, as David does, he looks back from everlasting to everlasting. That's from eternity before and ahead. But you are God. And he looks back before the mountains were formed, before the earth, before the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And when he looks at humanity, he's not looking ahead into eternity. And we'll see this when we read all 17 verses next time. What he sees is a terminus. Death is a terminus. And there's not really an expectation of goodness and mercy into eternity at all. We're not promised eternity in Psalm 90. It's not part of Moses's concept. As far as he looks is the legacy, the work of our hands, just for a little while after we're gone, preserve that. And that's as far into the future as he can see. He has a completely different concept of his relationship with God and of the people's relationship with God. But I think we understand why. And we'll talk about that a little more next time when we introduce Psalm 90. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.